The night sky burned like fire. Metal screamed as the human ship tore through the clouds and crashed into the dark alien forest. Flames spread across the ground, painting the trees with orange light. Inside the wreck, a man groaned and pushed himself out of the broken cockpit. His name was Ethan Cole, a soldier, pilot, and now the only survivor. His head bled, his arm hurt, but his training told him one thing: stay alive. He stumbled out into the cold wind. The planet's air smelled different, like smoke and flowers mixed together. He looked up. 2 moons hung above him, watching silently. The communication system was dead. His armor's signal beacon blinked weakly and then went dark. No rescue was coming. Ethan dragged himself away from the wreckage before the engine exploded behind him, shaking the forest. Pieces of burning metal flew into the air like falling stars. He fell to his knees, coughing. "Great," he muttered. "Another perfect landing, Cole." He checked his wrist pad. No signal, no power. Only one thing worked, the motion tracker. A faint dot appeared. Something was moving nearby. At first, he thought it was an animal, but then through the smoke he heard it, a cry, soft, shaky like a child. Ethan froze. The sound came again, closer now. It wasn't human. The voice was higher, lighter, and full of fear. He raised his pistol and slowly followed the sound through the trees. The forest was strange. Plants glowed faintly, their light pulsing like heartbeats. The air shimmered and the leaves whispered even without wind. He stepped over a log, flashlight cutting through the dark. And there, behind a large stone, he saw her, a small figure crouched, arms over her head, shivering. Her skin was pale with a faint blue glow. Her hair, long and silver, covered part of her face. She looked up, her eyes shining like tiny stars. She wasn't human. For a moment, neither of them moved. Ethan lowered his weapon slowly. "Hey, it's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." The girl flinched at his voice. She pressed herself against the stone, whispering something in a language he didn't know. Then, surprisingly, she spoke in broken English. "Please, don't take me back." Her voice cracked. Ethan frowned. "Take you back? What do you mean?" She shook her head and hid her face again. He noticed then the small cuts on her arms, the bruises on her legs, the tattered cloth that barely covered her. Her whole body trembled. He slowly put his gun on the ground and raised both hands. "See, no weapon. I'm not your enemy." Still, she didn't move. The way she looked at him, it wasn't fear of the unknown. It was fear of something familiar. He whispered, "What happened to you?" No answer, just silence and the sound of her uneven breathing. Ethan looked around. The forest seemed peaceful, but he knew better. The planet could have predators, and the smoke from his crash would attract attention soon. He couldn't leave her here. He took a step closer. The girl's eyes widened. Ethan stopped immediately. Okay, no closer. Look, it's freezing out here. I have a small shelter in my escape pod. You'll be safe there." She blinked at him, not understanding every word but hearing the tone. Then she whispered, "Safe?" He nodded. "Safe, I promise." Something in his voice made her pause. Slowly, she stood up. She was tiny, maybe 7 or 8 years old, though it was hard to tell. Her skin glowed faintly under the moonlight, her eyes soft but filled with fear. When she stepped forward, Ethan noticed marks across her neck and wrists, like something had been tied there once. Rage burned quietly in his chest. Whoever did that to her, human or alien, he wanted answers. They walked back to the crash site together, silent except for the crackling of small fires. When they reached the wreck, Ethan found a half-broken thermal blanket and wrapped it around her. "Name?" he asked gently. She looked confused, then pointed at herself. "Lyra." "Lyra," he repeated softly. "I'm Ethan," her lips trembled. "Human?" He hesitated. Yes, she took a step back, eyes wide again. "No. Humans, bad. They hurt us." Ethan's stomach twisted. He wanted to ask more, but before he could, the motion tracker beeped again. 3 red dots. Moving fast, something or someone was approaching. Ethan looked around quickly. Damn, they found the crash. He grabbed his rifle and turned to Lyra. "We have to move." She didn't understand. "Who?" "People," he said. "Bad ones?" Her face went pale. She grabbed his sleeve with her small glowing hand. "Don't let them take me, please." "I won't," Ethan said without thinking. They ran together into the trees. The forest glowed brighter the deeper they went, the plants reacting to her light. She was breathing hard, stumbling, but she didn't stop. Behind them, mechanical sounds echoed. Drones scanning the area, red lights flashing through the smoke. Ethan and Lyra hid under a massive root. The machines hovered above, searching. One beam of red light passed right over them. Ethan held his breath. Lyra trembled, her small hand clutching his arm tightly. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, the drones flew away. Ethan sighed in relief and looked down. Lyra was still holding his arm, eyes wet with tears. "Hey," he said softly. "It's over. You're safe now." But she only shook her head and whispered again, "No one is safe. When humans come." Ethan stared at her, speechless. Somewhere far above them, another ship crossed the night sky, searching. And in that quiet, Ethan realized this wasn't just an accident. Something much bigger was happening on this planet. And somehow, it had already found him. The forest was silent now. Only the sound of their footsteps broke the still air. Ethan led the way, his flashlight weak, his mind racing. Behind him, Lyra followed quietly, her small hands clutching the silver blanket around her shoulders. Every time he looked back, her glowing blue eyes met his, half trusting, half afraid. The ground was wet from the mist. Strange plants shimmered with light under their feet, folding like shy creatures as they passed. Ethan didn't know if the forest was alive or just reacting to her. They walked for almost an hour until they reached the remains of a metal escape pod, half buried, half broken. Ethan brushed the dirt off the entrance. "Here," he said softly. "It's not much, but it'll keep us safe." Lyra looked at the pod, then at him, unsure. She hesitated at the door, sniffed the air, then stepped inside slowly. It was small, cold, and smelled like smoke, but better than the open forest. Ethan sealed the door, checked his pistol, and sat near the light panel. "We'll stay here until morning," he said. Lyra sat in the corner, hugging her knees. Her glowing skin dimmed like a candle losing strength. "Are you hurt?" he asked. She looked at him, confused. Ethan pointed at her arms. "Your marks. Do they hurt?" Lyra shook her head but didn't speak. She pulled the blanket higher, covering the strange patterns on her skin. He sighed. "Okay, maybe tomorrow." For a while they sat in silence. The rain started outside, soft and rhythmic. Ethan checked his wrist pad again, still no signal. The system was fried. He was completely alone on this planet. He looked at Lyra again. The girl had fallen asleep sitting up, her hand resting on a glowing crystal hanging from her neck. The light pulsed gently with her heartbeat. He whispered, "Who are you, kid?" When dawn came, the rain stopped. Pale light filtered through the cracks of the pod. Lyra was awake, watching him quietly. "You didn't run," Ethan said with a small smile. She tilted her head. "Run?" "Yeah," he said. "You could have left while I was sleeping." Lyra looked down. "Nowhere to go." That answer hit him harder than he expected. He gave her a ration bar. "Here, food." She sniffed it, then bit a tiny piece. Her face wrinkled. "It tastes dead." Ethan laughed for the first time in days. "Yeah, welcome to army food." After a few more bites, she looked up. "Why you help me?" The question caught him off guard. He didn't know how to answer. "Because you needed help," he said finally. Lyra frowned like she didn't understand. "Humans don't help," she whispered. Ethan's stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" Her eyes darkened. "Humans come to our world. They take the glowing ones. They hurt them. They make them scream." Her voice trembled and she hugged herself tightly. Ethan felt a wave of anger and guilt rise inside him. He had heard rumors about secret operations, about human scientists experimenting on alien species for energy research. But he never believed it. Until now he lowered his head. "I'm sorry, Lyra," she blinked. "Why sorry?" "Because I'm human." For a moment she just stared at him. Then she said softly, "You're not like them." Ethan forced a small smile. "Maybe, but I was trained by them." Lyra reached out a small hand and touched his wrist. Her skin was warm, almost humming with energy. "You saved me. That means you're good." He didn't know what to say. Her words were so simple, but they hurt in the best way. Suddenly, a faint hum echoed from outside. Ethan froze. The sound grew louder, mechanical wings slicing through the air. He motioned for silence. Lyra pressed her hand over her mouth, eyes wide. Ethan crawled to the small window and looked out. A drone hovered above the trees, scanning with red light. Another one followed. "Damn," Ethan whispered. They're still tracking the crash site. Lyra's voice shook. They come for me. Not if I can help it, he said, loading his weapon quietly. The drones moved closer, the red beam sweeping across the ground. Ethan tapped a few buttons on his wrist pad. The pad sparked but responded weakly. He set a short-range EMP pulse and threw it out the window. Seconds later, boom! A silent flash lit the air. The drones flickered and fell from the sky like dying insects. Lyra gasped. You fight for me? Ethan nodded. You saved me last night, remember? I'm just returning the favor. She smiled faintly, the first real smile he'd seen from her. Her small fangs peeked through her lips when she smiled. It was oddly innocent and sad at the same time. Later, as the sun rose fully, Lyra began to hum softly, a strange, beautiful sound. The walls of the pod shimmered with faint light. Ethan looked around, confused. What are you doing? He asked. Healing, she said simply, and before his eyes, small cracks in the metal began to mend themselves. The broken light panel glowed brighter. Ethan stared in disbelief. That's impossible, she giggled quietly. Not impossible. Just light. Her glow faded slowly and she leaned back exhausted. Ethan realized something then. Her people weren't dangerous. They were powerful, yes, but gentle. Someone had turned them into victims for greed. He clenched his fists. They called your people weapons? Lyra nodded weakly. They make us glow for war. The words filled the small shelter like poison. Ethan looked out at the sunrise, his jaw tight. If humanity really did this, then maybe humanity wasn't worth saving, but this child was. He turned to her and said quietly, I'll keep you safe, Lyra, whatever it takes. She looked at him with half-open eyes, whispering, Promise? I promise. Outside, the morning light broke through the forest. But far away in the distance, another ship entered the sky, its scanners locking onto their location. The hunt was not over. It had only just begun. The morning after the storm was quiet. Too quiet. Ethan opened his eyes to see the soft glow of light spilling through the cracks in the pod. For a moment he forgot where he was, until the small figure beside him moved. Lyra was awake, sitting cross-legged, staring at her hands. They shimmered faintly, like moonlight trapped in skin. She seemed lost in thought, her expression sad but calm. Ethan stretched his sore arm and sighed. Morning. Lyra looked up, blinking. Morning, she said softly. He smiled faintly. You learn fast. She tilted her head, then smiled back, a small, pure smile that almost made him forget the danger outside. But reality returned quickly. His wrist pad flickered with weak static. The human signal was closer now. They were tracking him. He had to move soon. But the girl, she couldn't run far. Ethan took a deep breath. Lyra, we need to leave before they find us. She didn't answer. Instead, she looked down again, her hands shaking. They already find me before, she whispered. He frowned. What do you mean? She didn't speak. Her body trembled. Something inside her was breaking. Fear, pain, maybe both. Ethan stepped closer, kneeling in front of her. Hey, it's okay. You're safe here. Her glowing eyes lifted slowly. Safe? No safe with humans. The words hit him like a knife. I'm not like them, he said quietly. Lyra's lips trembled. They said that too. Then without warning, she stood up. Her blanket slipped off her shoulders, falling to the floor. She took a deep breath as if gathering courage, and slowly lifted her shirt just above her ribs. Ethan froze. Beneath her pale skin, strange symbols glowed, thin curved lines that formed patterns across her torso. They weren't natural. They were burn scars, deep and old, carved into her like cruel art. She looked down at them, her voice trembling. They say light is gift, but humans, cut it out. Ethan's stomach turned. The marks weren't random, they were code patterns. He recognized them from his military training, experiment IDs, genetic testing. Energy extraction, he whispered. God? No. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. They take my family, my mother, my brother. They make us glow more. They say it helps them win their war. Ethan's heart sank. He had heard rumors about Project Lumare, an old secret experiment to turn alien light energy into human weapons. But he never imagined it was true. And now one of its victims was standing right in front of him. He knelt down slowly, afraid even to breathe. Lyra, I'm sorry. I didn't know. She blinked, confused. You hurt too? No, he whispered, voice cracking. But I should have stopped them. I wore the same uniform. Lyra stared at him for a long moment. Then she said softly, "You saved me now. That makes you different." The words made his chest ache. She was just a child, yet she forgave so easily. He reached out carefully. "Can I see?" She nodded once. He touched the edge of one scar. Light pulsed faintly under his finger. She didn't flinch this time. Instead, the glow spread from her skin into his hand, warm and soft, like sunlight. He felt something impossible. For a brief second, he saw flashes in his mind, memories that weren't his. Lyra's memories. A white lab, cold tables, screams, men in armor, a bright needle, and her voice crying out for her mother. Ethan pulled back, trembling. "They used you like a battery?" Lyra hugged herself, shivering. I didn't want to glow anymore. But it never stopped. He clenched his fists. Rage burned in his chest. "They'll never touch you again. I promise." Outside, the wind howled. The air smelled of metal and danger. Lyra looked at him with wide eyes. "Promise is a strong word," he nodded. "Then I'll make it stronger." She tilted her head. "How?" Ethan smiled sadly. "By keeping it." Hours passed. Ethan scavenged what he could from the wreck. The drones were destroyed, but the main ship's radar sweep would soon find this area. He needed to move them both before night. He built a makeshift backpack and packed his few supplies. Lyra watched silently, her blanket wrapped tight around her again. "You ready to travel?" he asked. She hesitated. "Where we go?" "Somewhere quiet," Ethan said. "I saw ruins when I flew over this region. Maybe we can hide there." Lyra's eyes softened. "Ruins are safe, old ones. Don't hurt. Then that's where we'll go." She nodded and stood, still weak but willing. Ethan opened the pod door. The forest light spilled in, brighter now. Lyra winced at the sun but followed him out. The jungle shimmered with color. Birds of crystal wings flew overhead and vines glowed with moving light. It was beautiful, but Ethan couldn't enjoy it. Every step reminded him of her scars. After a while, Lyra spoke softly. "Ethan, why humans want light?" He thought for a moment. "Because humans fear darkness." She looked at him, confused. "So they hurt others for light?" He sighed. "Sometimes, yes." She was quiet for a long time, then whispered, "Then they are still dark inside." Her words struck him harder than any bullet. He didn't reply. He couldn't. As night began to fall, Ethan stopped near a large tree with hollow roots. He started setting up a small shelter. Lyra sat nearby, watching the firelight dance on her glowing hands. For a moment, it almost looked peaceful. Then, far away, a red flash lit the horizon. Ethan's heart dropped, a human drone signal stronger than before. They were close. He turned to Lyra. "We move at dawn. No more stops." She nodded silently, eyes filled with quiet fear. The wind picked up, carrying the faint sound of machines. Ethan held his rifle tight and looked at her one last time before trying to rest. In the dim light, her scars shone faintly like stars, reminders of pain and survival. And as she closed her eyes, Ethan whispered to himself, "No one will hurt you again. Not while I'm breathing." The sun had barely touched the sky when Ethan woke to the sound of distant engines. He sat up quickly, his soldier instincts alert. Lyra was still asleep beside the tree, her blanket wrapped tightly around her glowing body. The forest around them shimmered with faint light, peaceful, too peaceful. Then came the second sound, a low mechanical hum. They had found them. Ethan's pulse quickened. He stood scanning the trees. Small red dots flickered between the shadows, scout drones, the same kind used by his own army. He cursed under his breath. "They're faster than I thought." He knelt beside Lyra and gently shook her shoulder. "Hey, wake up! We have to go." Her eyes opened slowly, sleepy and confused. "Again?" "Yes, now." "No noise." She nodded weakly, clutching the small crystal around her neck. Ethan grabbed his rifle, slung his pack over his shoulder, and pulled her along through the thick vines. The forest seemed to sense their fear. The glowing leaves dimmed as they passed, hiding them in shadow. They ran downhill toward the ancient ruins Ethan had seen the day before. The air was heavy with mist, and every sound felt louder than it should. Behind them, the drones drew closer, buzzing like a swarm of angry bees. Ethan glanced back. "Keep moving, Lyra. Don't stop." She tried her best, but her small legs struggled to keep up. Her light flickered, growing weaker with every step. Suddenly, a red beam sliced past Ethan's head, burning through the bark of a nearby tree. He ducked and pulled Lyra down just as another shot hit the ground beside them, spraying dirt. "EMP won't work twice," he muttered, teeth clenched. "We need cover." Ahead, through the fog, stood the entrance to an old stone temple, half buried, overgrown with glowing vines. The walls shimmered faintly with the same light as Lyra's skin. Ethan pointed. "There!" They dashed toward the entrance. The drones followed, firing nets and tranquilizer darts. One dart grazed Ethan's shoulder, numbing his arm instantly. He stumbled but didn't stop. With his good hand, he grabbed Lyra and pushed her inside the ruin just as a net fired behind them, striking the wall instead. The moment they entered, the air changed. A soft hum filled the temple, and the drones outside froze in midair, then dropped lifelessly to the ground. Lyra gasped. "Temple protect." Ethan looked around, amazed. Strange glowing symbols covered the stone walls, spiraling upward into darkness. They pulsed faintly, matching the rhythm of Lyra's heartbeat. He set his rifle down, panting. "What is this place?" Lyra touched one of the glowing symbols. "Home. Before humans come." He stared at her, shocked. "You mean this was your people's?" She nodded. "Old Lumari built light temples. They make peace with sky people long ago." Ethan walked deeper into the temple, running his fingers over the carvings. The walls showed pictures, humans and Lumari standing side by side, sharing light. But over time, the carvings turned darker. The humans began taking the light by force. The last image showed Lumari chained, their light fading. His heart sank. "We were allies once," he whispered. Lyra's voice was small. "Humans forgot." He turned to her. "Maybe not all of us." For the first time, she smiled without sadness. But their moment of peace didn't last. From outside came the deep, thunderous sound of engines. Ethan peeked through a crack in the temple wall. A dropship hovered above the trees, black and marked with the insignia of the human military. Soldiers in armor rappelled down, weapons ready. "Damn," Ethan muttered. "They sent a whole unit." Lyra's eyes widened. "They want me." He looked at her firmly. "They're not getting you." He checked his weapon, counting his remaining shots. 6 rounds, 1 half-empty energy cell. Not enough for a full fight, but maybe enough to slow them down. He looked around the temple again. The walls seemed alive, glowing brighter as Lyra's fear grew. "Can this place help us?" he asked. Lyra stepped forward, touching the wall again. "Light listens." If heart true, he almost smiled. "Then we'll hope my heart's good enough." She closed her eyes and the air began to vibrate. The light from the walls flowed toward her like streams of water. Her body glowed brighter and brighter until Ethan had to shield his eyes. Outside, the soldiers entered the forest, shouting commands. Their scanners went wild, unable to lock onto any signal. The light from the temple confused their sensors. Inside, Ethan watched in awe as Lyra floated a few inches off the ground, her small hands raised. The carvings lit up fully, revealing thousands of tiny symbols like stars. "Lyra, stop," he said. "You'll drain yourself." She shook her head weakly. "No, must hide us." Suddenly, the entire temple trembled. The entrance sealed shut with a flash of blue light. Outside, the soldiers pounded on the stone, but the wall was solid now, like steel. Then everything went quiet again. Lyra collapsed, her light fading to a faint glow. Ethan caught her before she hit the ground. "Hey, stay with me," he said, shaking her gently. Her voice was barely a whisper. "I used too much." He laid her down carefully and tore open his ration pack. "Don't talk, rest." Her hand reached up weakly, touching his chest. "You care so much." "Why?" Ethan swallowed hard. "Because someone has to. And maybe that's what being human really means." She smiled faintly. "Then you are light too." Her eyes closed, her breathing slow but steady. Ethan leaned against the wall, exhausted. The hum of the temple surrounded him, peaceful, almost protective. Outside, he could hear the soldiers arguing, their scanners failing. They didn't know that the temple itself was alive, hiding them both. He looked down at Lyra, sleeping under the faint blue glow. Her scars seemed softer now, glowing gently like the marks were finally healing. He whispered to himself, "I'll keep fighting for you, kid, no matter what it costs." And as he said it, somewhere deep within the temple, an ancient voice echoed faintly, one he couldn't understand, but it sounded almost like approval. The forest above them glowed softly, and the human searchlights faded one by one. The hunt wasn't over, but for the first time, the hunted were no longer running. They had found something stronger than fear. They had found hope. The temple slept in silence. Only a soft hum echoed through the air like the heartbeat of the ancient stones themselves. Ethan sat beside Lyra, watching her tiny chest rise and fall. The glow on her skin flickered faintly, like a candle fighting against the wind. He hadn't moved for hours. Every few minutes he checked her pulse, her breathing, just to make sure she was still there. She was. But barely. He whispered to the empty hall, "You saved me again, kid. You keep doing that." The walls responded with a faint shimmer as if the temple itself understood him. Ethan stood and walked around, studying the carvings more closely. The images seemed to move when he looked too long, like stories trapped in light. He saw humans and Lumari working side by side, building great cities of shining stone. Then came war, greed, and betrayal. Humans had learned to take the light instead of sharing it. It was all there, written in stone. Humanity's biggest sin, he clenched his fists. "We did this." Behind him, a soft voice broke the silence. "Yes," he turned quickly. Lyra was awake, her eyes open but weak. "You shouldn't move," he said, rushing to her side. She smiled faintly. "Temple showed you?" He nodded. "It did, Lyra. What is that light inside you?" She looked down at her hands. They shimmered softly. "Light is life. All Lumari have it. We give it to heal, to grow, to make peace. But humans, they try to take it." Ethan sat beside her, listening carefully. She continued. "Long ago, humans came from the sky. They were kind first. They help us build. They learn our ways. But one human wanted more light. He made others afraid. He said our glow was power." Her voice shook. "Then war started. They call it the harvest." Ethan's chest tightened. He remembered classified reports he'd once seen. Operations on alien worlds, resource extraction projects that vanished from public record. Now he knew the truth. Those resources were people. They took your people. "For energy," he said quietly. Lyra nodded. "Yes, they put us in machines. Make us glow until we die. They say it's for peace, but peace never came." Her small hands trembled. Ethan gently covered them with his. "I'm sorry. I wish I could undo what they did." "You can't change past," she whispered. "But you can choose light." Her words hit him like a hammer. Choose light. He thought about his life, his training, his missions, his orders. Always told what to do, never what was right. Maybe this was his chance to finally be human again. Suddenly, the temple walls flickered red. Warning symbols glowed. Ethan jumped to his feet. "What now?" Lyra's eyes widened. "They find us," the walls vibrated. Outside, heavy engines roared. The human soldiers had brought drillers, machines that could break through anything. Ethan cursed under his breath. "We have to move." Lyra tried to stand but fell weakly. "I can't." "My light is gone." He knelt beside her. "No, you're not done yet." He took off his broken wrist pad and began pulling out wires. "You said your light can heal, right?" She nodded weakly. "Only when heart is calm," he smirked. "Then you'll hate this plan." He wrapped the wires around her crystal and connected them to the small power cell he'd salvaged. "If your light can recharge this, I can boost the signal and send a false reading. Make them think we ran north." She blinked slowly. "You trust my light?" "With my life." She smiled faintly and placed her hand on the crystal. A warm glow spread through the wires, soft at first, then brighter, stronger. The small device began to hum. Ethan stepped back, amazed. "You're doing it." Her glow intensified until the entire room filled with blue-white light. Ethan shielded his eyes. The air buzzed with energy. The temple itself responded, the carvings lighting up one by one. Then, as suddenly as it began, it was over. Lyra collapsed again, breathing fast but alive. The wrist pad beeped. Signal sent. "False coordinates, North Region 9, Ethan grinned. "They'll follow the wrong trail." "We've got time." He sat beside her, resting his head against the cold wall. "You're full of surprises, you know that?" She giggled softly. "Humans say that when scared," he laughed. "You're not wrong." Outside, the distant thunder of engines faded. The soldiers were moving away. For now, they were safe. Ethan looked around the glowing temple. "This place is alive, isn't it?" Lyra nodded weakly. "It remembers. It knows who we are." He touched one of the glowing carvings. "Then maybe it can help us fight back." Her eyes widened slightly. "Fight?" I'm done running, Ethan said. They hurt your people. They destroyed your world. If this light can heal, maybe it can also show them what they've done. Lyra looked at him silently, studying his face. You want to use light to fight dark? He nodded. Yeah, exactly. For a long moment she said nothing. Then slowly she raised her hand. Her small fingers glowed again, soft but steady. She touched his chest right over his heart. Her voice was gentle. Then I give you some of my light. Before he could stop her, a warm wave flowed into him. His whole body felt weightless. His vision flashed, blue, white, gold. The pain in his arm vanished. The exhaustion in his muscles melted away. He gasped, falling to his knees. Lyra, what did you do? She smiled weakly. Now your heart glows too. He looked down at his hands. For the first time, faint light shone beneath his skin. Lyra, I can't. You can, she said softly. Humans took too much. Maybe one must give back. Ethan didn't know what to say. All he could do was stare at her glowing eyes full of innocence and pain and whisper, Thank you. Lyra leaned against him, half asleep. You protect light now, promise, he nodded. I promise. Outside, the sun began to rise over the alien jungle. The temple glowed softly, breathing with them, and deep inside its heart, ancient lights stirred once more, waiting for the day they would shine again. The jungle was burning again. Ethan could see smoke rising far beyond the trees, turning the blue sky into ash. The false signal had fooled the soldiers for a while, but not forever. They were coming. Inside the ancient Lumari temple, faint cracks of light spread across the walls. The stone structure trembled as distant explosions shook the ground. Ethan tightened the strap of his rifle and looked toward Lyra, who sat cross-legged near the glowing crystal at the center of the temple. Her light was dim now, almost fading. You shouldn't be awake, he said gently. She looked up, eyes calm. They come. I feel them, he nodded grimly. Yeah, and they'll be here soon. Lyra tilted her head, studying his face. You don't run this time. Ethan shook his head. No, this ends here. The air around them pulsed faintly. The temple seemed to react to their determination. Its carvings brightened as if awakening. Lyra whispered, Temple listens to heart. It knows when we choose, he smiled slightly. Then let it listen, because I'm done running from my own kind. Outside, thunder rolled, not from the sky, but from ships descending. 3 human dropships landed in a clearing, their engines roaring like monsters. Soldiers poured out, armored and armed. At their front stood Commander Rice, tall, cold, and silent, the man Ethan once served under. He raised a communicator. Cole, we know you're alive. Surrender the specimen. You'll be treated with mercy. Ethan's voice echoed back from the temple speakers, calm but defiant. You lost your right to mercy when you started carving it out of children. Reese frowned. You have no idea what's at stake. That creature holds enough power to save humanity. Don't make this personal. It's already personal, Ethan said. The commander gave the signal. The soldiers advanced. Inside, Lyra pressed her glowing palms against the crystal. They bring dark hearts, she said softly. Temple feels pain. Ethan crouched beside her. Can the temple defend itself? She hesitated. Only if I connect. But it hurts. A lot. Ethan looked into her trembling eyes. Then don't, we'll fight another way. She smiled faintly. You forget, I'm light. I don't fear dark. Before he could stop her, she placed both hands on the crystal. The entire room exploded with brightness. Symbols on the walls came alive, spiraling around her like fireflies. Ethan shielded his eyes. Lyra, stop. You'll burn out. She shook her head. Temple and I are one. We protect. Outside, the soldiers reached the temple and began firing heavy charges. But each shot dissolved into blue mist before it could touch the walls. The commander scowled. Energy shield. Powered by her, he muttered. Then we drain it. He gestured to his engineers. A massive resonance cannon unfolded from the dropship, glowing red. Ethan ran to the door, aiming through a small crack. He fired 2 shots, hitting a soldier. The others scattered for cover. He ducked as bullets hit the stone beside him. Rice, he shouted. You're killing your own people now. Rice's voice echoed through the comms. I'm saving our species, Cole. 1 alien doesn't matter. Ethan gritted his teeth. She's a child. Then she's an easy sacrifice. The words made Ethan's blood boil. He turned back to Lyra. Her glow flickered violently now, and small tears of light ran down her cheeks. Ethan, she whispered. I see their hearts. All gray, no light. He knelt beside her, gripping her shoulder. Then we'll give them some of yours. He lifted his rifle and took a deep breath. I'll buy you time. You do what you have to do. Lyra looked up weakly. Promise you come back? He forced a smile. I'll always come back. Then he ran out. The air outside was fire and metal. Ethan darted between ruins, shooting at the soldiers. His aim was sharp, every shot deliberate. Explosions lit the sky, shaking the temple behind him. A blast hit the ground near him, throwing him against a rock. His armor cracked, blood dripping down his arm, but he pushed up again. Rice approached slowly, weapon raised. You're a traitor, Cole. Ethan laughed bitterly. If doing the right thing makes me a traitor, then yeah, I guess I am. Rice aimed. Goodbye, soldier. Before he could fire, the ground beneath them began to glow. Blue veins of light spread from the temple outward, crawling across the forest floor. Rice stepped back. What the? The light burst upward like lightning, blinding everyone. Inside the temple, Lyra floated in the air, her eyes glowing pure white. The carvings pulsed like beating hearts. Her voice echoed not just in the temple, but across the jungle. No more fear. No more pain. Outside, the soldiers dropped their weapons, clutching their helmets as visions flooded their minds. Flashes of the Lumari's suffering, their screams. Their light fading under human hands. Even Rice staggered, eyes wide, seeing what his war had done. Ethan looked up at Lyra's light spreading into the sky. Lyra, stop. You'll die. She turned her head toward him, smiling gently. Maybe light must burn once, so dark can see. A final wave of energy erupted from her body, washing across the battlefield. The ships shut down. The weapons melted like wax. The soldiers fell to their knees, stunned by what they saw. And then, silence. The temple dimmed. The air cooled. Ethan rushed inside. Lyra lay motionless near the crystal, her glow fading to a soft blue. He knelt beside her, his voice breaking. Hey, stay with me. Her eyes opened weakly. Ethan? I'm here, she smiled faintly. They stopped fighting. He nodded, tears running down his face. You did that. She reached up, touching his cheek. No, we did. Her hand fell, the last light fading from her skin. Ethan held her close, his heart pounding, whispering, You kept your promise. Now it's my turn. Outside, the jungle glowed softly under the dawn. No fire, no war, only peace, but Ethan knew it wasn't over yet. He had one last message to send, one that could change everything. Smoke drifted gently through the ruins. The battle was over, but the silence felt heavier than any war cry. Ethan sat on the cold temple floor, cradling Lyra's small body in his arms. Her skin no longer glowed, yet faint warmth lingered against his chest, like the last breath of sunlight before night. Outside, the jungle shimmered softly. The once burned trees were now alive with new light, as if the planet itself was healing. Everything was quiet, peaceful. But inside Ethan's heart, a storm still raged. He brushed a lock of silver hair from Lyra's face. You did it, kid, he whispered, voice breaking. You stopped them, no answer. Only the hum of the temple walls glowing faintly with her fading light. He closed his eyes and let the silence stretch. Memories flashed in his mind. Her shy smile, her laugh when she tasted food for the first time, the way she called him light. He had promised to protect her, and in the end she had protected him. Outside, the soldiers were waking up, confused and shaken. Their weapons lay melted into the ground, useless. The commander, Rice, staggered to his feet, his face pale. He looked at his trembling hands as if they were covered in blood no one else could see. What have we done? He whispered. Ethan stepped out of the temple, still carrying Lyra. The sunlight hit her face, making it look like she was only sleeping. The soldiers raised their eyes, expecting a fight, but Ethan didn't come to fight. He came to finish something greater. He stood tall and spoke, his voice steady but full of sorrow. This is what your orders created, a child who glowed brighter than all of us, and you killed her because you were afraid of her light. No one spoke. Even the wind stopped. Rice took a step forward. Cole, Ethan's voice cut through him like a blade. No, you don't get to talk about peace anymore. She showed you what it really means. He looked at the sky, where faint golden clouds shimmered like the light still remembered her. If humanity can't learn from this, then maybe we don't deserve the stars. The soldiers lowered their eyes. For the first time, there was no command, no pride, only shame. Ethan carried Lyra back into the temple one last time. He found the crystal chamber where she had first called the light. The carvings on the walls glowed softly as if waiting. He placed her gently on the stone altar. "You belong here," he whispered. The air shimmered. The walls brightened and a soft hum filled the room. Then a tiny beam of light rose from her chest, swirling into the air. It floated above her like a fragile flame. Ethan stepped back, eyes wide. "Lyra?" Her voice echoed faintly, soft and pure like a whisper carried by the wind. "Don't be sad, Ethan. Light never dies. It only moves." Tears blurred his vision. "Where will it go?" "Everywhere," she said. "To those who still have hope. To those who still choose good." The light expanded, touching the walls, the ceiling, and finally his heart. When it faded, the room was empty, but the air felt alive, full of warmth and peace. He stood in silence for a long time. Then he whispered, "Goodbye, Lyra." Hours later, Ethan sat outside the temple entrance, staring at the rising twin suns. The jungle was alive again, green, glowing, full of birds that sang like crystal chimes. He opened his damaged wristpad. The transmitter flickered weakly, but it still worked. He set it to broadcast across all human frequencies. His voice came through steady, calm and tired. "This is Captain Ethan Cole, survivor of Expedition 47. I'm sending this message to every human outpost within range." He paused, looking at the glowing forest before him. "We came here looking for energy, for weapons, for control. But we found something better, something purer. A people who understood that light isn't meant to be taken. It's meant to be shared." He took a deep breath. "We destroyed their world because we were afraid of what we didn't understand. But one of them, a child, saved us anyway. She showed me what humanity used to mean, what it could still mean." Static crackled through the device. He leaned closer. "If anyone hears this, stop the war, stop the experiments, stop the fear. The universe doesn't need more darkness. It needs more light." He hesitated, then added quietly, "Her name was Lyra. Remember it? She was the brightest star I ever knew." He ended the message and dropped the wristpad beside him. As the suns climbed higher, a soft wind moved through the trees, carrying glowing pollen that drifted around him like tiny stars. He closed his eyes, feeling the warmth on his face. Something touched his shoulder, gentle, warm, familiar. He turned, half expecting to see her. But there was only light. A faint shape in the glow, smiling. Her voice whispered in his mind, "See? You glow too." Ethan laughed softly, wiping his tears. "Guess I do." He stood and looked at the horizon. Far beyond, he could see other lights. Small human ships returning, their engines quieter this time. He didn't know what they'd do next. But maybe, just maybe, they'd remember her. He picked up his pack and started walking. The jungle parted before him, vines glowing softly as if guiding his path. Every step he took left faint footprints of light behind, marks that slowly faded but never truly vanished. He looked up at the sky one last time and whispered, "Thank you, Lyra, for teaching me what it means to be human." The wind carried his words upward, into the golden sky where two suns met, and somewhere among those shining rays a small voice laughed softly, pure, free, and full of light. Because light, after all, never really dies. It just finds another heart to live in.